Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be going over how to start the Beech Model 18. So a lot of people equate this aircraft to the DC-3, which I think is a much more complicated aircraft to fly and to start and to run. The engines are very powerful Pratt & Whitney engines. However, I don't think it's nearly as complicated as the DC-3 to operate. However, looking at this cockpit, a lot of people can get very intimidated and think, oh wow, there's just so much going on, I don't even know where to start. I developed my procedures for operating this aircraft from a document that I found online, which is from the Canadian military. This is 1968 that this came out, which is a very similar, if not almost identical, aircraft to the Beech Model 18. It's the Expediter, which is a training version of the Beech Model 18 for the military. And this document is the pilot operating handbook. So as pilots, we have to read through this entire document if we're going to fly an aircraft effectively and safely, and we actually have to have a copy of this in the aircraft at all times as well. And this has all the procedures for the entire aircraft located within it. Performance numbers, weight and balance, everything. It's got, well, at least the one in the airplane has the weight and balance and all the diagrams, everything. So anyway, I will leave a link to that document down in the description so you can access it if you want. But the way that I operate this aircraft is mostly just by memory because I've done it so many times. So we're going to go over how to start it from cold and dark. You can always do the old Control E, but that's really boring in my opinion, and if you want to actually learn how to do this stuff, then it would help to actually know what you're doing rather than just hitting Control E. So first thing I do when I start this aircraft in cold and dark is I will open the windows. And the reason why you open the windows in real life anyway is so you can yell out the windows and tell people when you're about to start the engine so you don't hit anybody with the propellers, and also so you can see the aircraft or see the engines and, you know, check for flames or, you know, explosions or anything else like that. I'm just going to take these yokes off so I can actually see what I'm doing down here. And I start over here. Okay, so I start over on the right hand panel. First thing I do is I turn the beacon on. And also, if you're going to start this plane at night, you might want to start with the lights first as well, because once you turn the battery on and your headlamp goes away, you're not going to be able to see anything. The lights, the interior lights are up here. You have the left-hand panel, the engine instruments, the radios, and the right-hand panel. And then this is the master light switch. All those need to be switched to the on position, so I'm just going to do that here. It doesn't really work until the batteries are on, but I'm just going to pretend like I go all the way to the right with all of them, drag them all to the right. And then the last thing that I need to turn on with the lights, actually not the last, but I also need to turn on the compass light right here. So I'm going to drag that all the way to the right. And then the last two things I'm going to do with the lights are turn these red lights on. So now all the interior lights are on, and as soon as I turn the batteries on, they're going to come on. All right. During the day, I don't need to worry about lights at all, so I'm just going to turn the beacon on. The beacon needs to be on anytime the engines are running. So that's going to be the first thing to come on. Next thing I need to do is I need to come over here and make sure both of the mixtures are all the way up and rich. I need to make sure the propeller control is all the way up. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to close the oil shutters. So essentially I'm closing a door in front of the oil coolers. So the oil coolers are used, the oil is cooled via air. And if you close those oil shutters, then it doesn't allow air to cool those shutters. So on startup, I usually shut these so that the oil can warm up as fast as possible. And once you're taxiing, the oil is up within this green arc right here, then you can shut it down. It actually might need to be a little bit higher than the green arc so you can shut it down and it'll stay in the green arc while you're taxiing. This is something you need to monitor throughout the flight as well. because it is not automatic, and I usually leave these shut during the flight, and that keeps it within the green arc. If I open them, then it gets excessively cold and it gets down here into the yellow. So during start, I leave them shut. Then I want to make sure that the throttles are down at idle, okay? Then I'm going to open the cowl flaps. So this is closed and this is open. Both of them are open, okay? Going to go down here to the fuel tanks. Both of them are on the two main fuel tanks on the left side and on the right, so that's good. And then we're going to make sure the oil shutoffs are in and not pulled out. And then we're also going to make sure the parking brake is on. So parking brake off, parking brake on, okay? And now here we have the primer, okay? Now, in real life, you would only prime most likely one at a time. Just to save time, I try to do two at a time. So I'll go to the right, okay? And then I'll prime it 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Go to the left, do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You don't have a lot of time in real life because the fuel evaporates out of the cylinder very quickly. But in the game, it doesn't really matter that much. I'm going to do both engines at the same time. Batteries coming on. As you can see, all the lights are now turned on. Okay, then we're going to go over here to the fuel pumps. And we're going to go to the right. We're going to turn the booster pump on. And as you can see, the booster pump on the right side is now providing fuel pressure to the right engine. And the left engine, as you can see, no fuel pressure. Next, we're going to hit the starter and we're going to wait for 7 turns of the propeller, right? So we're going to say clear prop. This is when you'd yell out the window, clear prop. You know, this guy is sitting right here. In real life, that guy would not be there. You probably shouldn't start the engine with that guy there. But in the game, I'm just going to start it. So we're going to turn the starter on and we're going to wait for 7 turns of the propeller, and then we're going to turn the magnetos on. And that is just to get the oil circulating throughout the engine, because it is an engine that needs a lot of oil going into this radial configuration. We're just going to get it started with 7 turns. So we're just going to count it generally. Starter, 7 turns, roughly, and magnetos coming on. First thing we're looking at over here is the oil pressure. So the oil pressure is right here, okay? And it's just into the yellow because the engine is still at idle, but we have oil pressure, which means that the engine is operating correctly and circulating the oil in the engine. More important than anything else, as soon as you start any engine, make sure you have oil pressure. All right, so we're going to do the same thing for the left-hand side. We're going to go to the left-hand side, and we're going to go boost pump. As you can see, we just got pressure right here on the fuel. And then we're going to go clear prop. Start 7 turns. And magnetos. Checking for oil pressure on the left. We have oil pressure. Okay. And as you can see, oil temperature is still very low. Oil pressure is still very low because the engine is at idle. That's all fine. And we're going to keep the oil shutter closed until we get up to the green. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go and shut this. And we're going to turn the generators on, and we're going to check the loads. So we have a positive charge on both sides, as you can see. We are charging the battery. Then we're going to go up here and we're going to turn the avionics on. Okay. And the transponder. As that loads up, then you're going to be looking at the oil temperature. As you can see in this plane, the oil temperature gets up pretty fast. And now we can shut these. And as you can see, the oil temperature goes back down now. It's very responsive. And you're now maintaining maybe just below the green arc, and it's going to keep coming up until it's generally in the green arc for taxi. And that's it. You can leave the fuel pumps on, or you can leave them off. I usually just leave them on. If you turn them off during taxi, the fuel pressure lights come on here while you're at low RPM. So let's just make sure we're on the parking brake is on, and I'll give it a little bit of power. And as you can see, once the power comes up, the fuel pressure lights come off, because you start getting more RPMs in the engine and more pressure in the fuel lines, which means that you have sufficient pressure in the fuel lines. I don't think this makes any difference while you're taxiing or on the ground that you have these lights. In a lot of planes, you have these fuel pressure lights come on the ground anyway, because you're just idling and you don't have a whole lot of pressure in the lines. But anyway, yeah, just a quick video on how to start this thing up, and hope it was informative.